When we talk about investments, and I think coming from Latin America into Africa, I think I was asked a question on radio right now, why hasn't Latin America been present in Africa so far? And why hasn't Africa been trading with Latin America so far? So that's a good question. I think the question is, we are in similar levels in terms of where we are in terms of development. Although Latin America is called developing markets, we are still called as frontier markets, which have not opened up yet. And I think that's the definition that's being put out. Having said that, the key question is Kenya, East Africa, COMESA, is Eastern Africa investable or not? And I think that's the key question for today. Coming from a perspective of where I come from, we are investing very heavily into this market. I'm born here, brought up here, and I'm going to die here, so there's no problem with that. The issue is we're investing in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and next week we start off our production in Madagascar. Our goal is to go all over Africa to grab, grow, and sustain #1 market share in the African markets by 2030. So we have a 14-year more plan. You know, in 14 years we're going to get all over Africa with our products. What do we make? We make edible oils, fats, soaps, margarines, detergents, consumer goods. And we sell in branded products across the region. And we sell right up to the bulk packs, to the small packs, which is even the small sachet industry where it's at the bottom of the pyramid. So we serve every pocket. And in that respect, I think I want to talk to you about what are the opportunities. When we look at opportunities here, we actually here in Kenya, and I speak specifically for Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, as East Africa, we are producing here at world-class standards. When I say world-class, what does world-class mean in any context today? Whether it's Europe or America or even Asia. You talk about the ISO standards. ISO 9000, we're certified. ISO 14000, environmental, we're certified. ISO 18000 for occupational health, certified. ISO 22000, certified. We're part of the UN Global Compact, and therefore our practices are all world-class. Then we look at Kaizen and lean manufacturing here. And I think this issue is for manufacturing is competitiveness. The key question that if you are investors, you will be looking at is Kenya competitive? Are we going to be competitive to produce here? When you look at competitiveness, there are 3 or 4 factors. One is cost of capital. Second is the cost of labor. Cost of labor is one thing, but labor productivity is another issue. And I think this is where we need to look at those factors of production. And then we need to look at the raw materials. Fourth is logistics, transport costs. Are they competitive or not competitive? And then when we look at the finished products, where will the finished products go? What are the markets? And we're into quite a few other industries. We've also got flower farms here, where we actually farm agribusiness flowers here. We plant them, we grow them under greenhouses, and we export them to Holland every single day. Now, the key question is, how can we be competitive going by air every day into Holland? But yes, Kenya is now becoming the largest flower exporter in the world. Today it is one of the largest. It is going to become the largest soon, because the rate of growth of this industry is massive. Why is this so? The first reason is because we have the sun. We're actually sitting 2 hours from the equator. The equator is just, you can drive out and you see the equator there. The equator means we get 12 hours of sunshine. So when you get 12 hours of sunshine, we've got water, we've got land, unused arable land, we've got labor, which is probably unemployed. We have a lot of opportunity here. Therefore, we are growing quite fast. Then came the technology, and the technology was, currently it's more of cut flowers, roses, and carnations. But the point is, technology is available. It was brought in here from Holland, and now the Dutch are complaining because all their greenhouses are empty and there are more greenhouses coming up out here. Number one. Number two, overall competitiveness is key. So then we look at cost of power and availability of power. Like Ali Khan said, power, we have surplus right now, we have availability. In fact, the power lighting is saying that we have more consumers available. And apart from this, there are many more power projects coming up. So availability is not going to be a problem.
A lot of people complain about power costs.
Cost is a problem.
Are around 12
now the question is,
US cents
a lot of people complain
power.
about power costs, but power costs in Kenya are around 12 to 14 US cents per kilowatt hour. The key question there is, what is it in competitive countries like China, India, or elsewhere? It is around 11 or 12. So cost of power as a factor of production. When I'm producing X item or Y item, the cost of power is close to about 2% in bread, to 5% in oils, to 30% in cement. So yes, in cement, we need to look at what are alternative sources, but all the rest are not as significant. Labor productivity and labor cost. Our average cost here in Kenya is around $120 to $150 per person. Ethiopia is at $50 per person. So labor cost in Ethiopia is much lower. However, labor productivity in Kenya is 2-3 times better than Ethiopia. So when you look at that as a comparison, it's still there. The third thing I think is the issue of logistics. Now, logistics, a lot of people complain because now we have the port in Mombasa, although the dwell times in Mombasa port have improved a lot. There used to be 21 days. Your ship comes in, from ship to shore, you get your cargo. Getting out of there was taking 21 days. Today it takes about 3 days. The turnarounds are improving. Now we've got metrics there where we're saying, can we make it 8 hours? So that the goods come in there and within 8 hours they're moving towards where they're required. So the productivity is going up there. So ports are being sorted out. With the new railway coming up, we'll have much more flow going to the customer. Then we look at if the markets are East Africa, if the markets are Africa, when you're importing any goods from anywhere in the world, let's say you import from anywhere, the freight cost will be the same for finished goods or for raw material. So that freight cost, about saying that, oh, local cost for manufacturing locally, the freight inbound cost is very high, it's the same for finished goods. So relative competitiveness is one key issue if you're looking at the African markets. The relative competitiveness is quite okay for manufacturing to happen here. And therefore, when we look at overall costs of production, I think we're quite good in that sense. Market access is available right now. We have a customs union, although not a fully fledged one, but it is fully operational in terms of the tariffs. So in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and Sudan, we have the same common external tariff, one import duty rate. 0% for raw materials, 10% duty for intermediates, and 25% for finished products coming outside of this region. So you have a 0 to 25% protection level for manufacturing here. That compensates for a slightly higher cost in other areas. And that protection is quite good enough. Then we talk about the agribusiness. I think in agribusiness, there is freedom to do whatever you want to do. In fact, in Kenya, I speak specifically for Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, Kenya and Uganda, we have no licenses required to operate. Even in Kenya, you don't need a license to come and operate whatever you want to operate. You can come in straight and start operating. Yes, there are certain things that are IDFs, which is a declaration form. It's not a showstopper anymore. So freedom of coming and investing is easy. Number two, repatriation of money from Kenya or from Uganda. It's not a problem at all. You bring in investment dollars, you can take out investment dollars. Everything is absolutely okay, number one. Number two, our fiscal and monetary policies in Kenya are very, very stable. And I speak now for Kenya rather than East Africa. In Kenya, it's very stable. Our exchange rate has kept quite stable. Despite Brexit, despite Trump coming in, nothing's really changed that much. And I think we've got a stability there. Number two, we also have our interest rate regime that is quite stable right now. In fact, we've gone overboard by saying we have a controlled interest rate here in Kenya. So that's also available. So cost of being competitive is not a problem. We have all the types of banks you want here. International banks, local banks, the works, and they work. And electronic banking is big here. You do not have to go to the bank anymore. Your bank is in your mobile phone now. And Kenya, probably you also know, that is the biggest inventor in the world of M-Pesa, which you can just send an SMS and your money is transferred. That's the ease of doing business. It's really working well, and it's operative. I think when you talk about stability and financial stability, in any investment you're looking at, is this current economy stable? I think it's quite stable. Number one, we have worked on our constitution. We have a brand new constitution in Kenya, and it's the first 5 years. We're going into the 4th year and the 5th year now, whereby we put in a new system of devolution. So really, even if national government, you don't have people with a sane mind there, the county governments will still work quite well. So really, there's no risk. We've de-risked the model of investments. So you invest in Kenya, you don't have to worry about political risk. We've actually reduced that. However, the insurance companies, and I think this is an important point, the insurance companies haven't reduced their rates for our insurances, which they should, because the risk is really much, much lower. When you look at the business environment, very open, very clear, you can operate as you wish. Not a problem at all. Therefore, I'm just saying, when you look at Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, your goods can go from here to any of these markets without any tariffs, provided you're manufacturing here. From Kenya, we export to 16 different African countries, and we have no import duties in those countries because we are value adding here. We add 35% local value added, and the law is 30%. So really, it's not a problem to manufacture here as a hub. So in short, Nairobi or Kenya is a hub where it's a financial hub, it's also a logistical hub, it's also the hub for communications, our internet facilities. I'm sure you've got all of you on mobile phones and whatnot, it's working. The bandwidth availability is quite good. We have different undersea cables. So in that respect, the operating environment is quite good. I think the key issue is, can we be operating here in Kenya and be world-class? We say as a company, we're doing it, we're doing world-class manufacturing here, why can't you? So I think all your best practices you can bring in and operate here. The only thing is, there be a language barrier. And this is where I see an issue around the language barrier. We speak a lot in English here. So English, Anglophone, a lot. In Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, it's more English. And then of course, Swahili is the local language. But really, if it's not English, it's a difficult thing. Upskilling of our people, labor, availability is high. Our graduates are second to none. And they have this learning attitude. They want to learn much more. They can actually build up a lot more skilling. The upskilling is probably what is required. And that's a gap where you've got real high skills to do a lot more precision engineering, precision stuff. That we can actually train and improve them. So there's not a problem there. Raw materials, you're allowed to import any raw materials to operate here, or you produce them locally. And in agribusiness, there's enough potential to produce it locally. If not, you can still import it, no issues around it. And I think the standards for manufacturing, the standards of the Bureau of Standards are standardized and harmonized across East Africa. So you don't have issues of differing standards or labeling laws. That becomes a non-tariff barrier. And I think capacity building is possible. Skilling Kenya is also a very much possible issue. Overall, the operating environment is one of growth. If you look at the whole of Africa today, Kenya comes out the most shining star. Why? Not only because it's really good, but also because the rest who are very bright, was Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola, are looking down right now because of commodity prices, because of political issues, and obviously Ethiopia right now is a question mark. And I think we got to look at that and see, really, that was a much bigger shining star, but competitiveness issues are looking at it. So inter-regional trade is possible from here. I think it's a one destination from here. You can actually do a lot more. So the question is, do we have problems? I say yes, we have problems. We have some problems which are our own man-made in Kenya. We have a narrative that talks about, oh, we are really corrupt in Kenya. I think Kenya is seeming like it's very, very corrupt. It really is not. There are 44 million people in Kenya, and none of them pay bribes every day. I think this is about a few areas where even is procurement or government issues, 3 or 4 or 5 different areas where it's happening, that should not become that Kenya is corrupt. And I think the issue around this is overplayed by politicians. So I just request you to look at that in that perspective.